Hello, everyone. Welcome to the News Browse News broadcast. According to WANI, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced on March 27, 226, the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz to oil tankers of hostile countries, specifically prohibiting all vessels to and from ports of the United States, Israel, and their allies. This declaration, which warned of severe consequences for any attempts to pass, immediately triggered an energy panic in Japan. The article highlights that Japan's Sanae Takaichi publicly aligned with the U.S. during heightened tensions, a move Iran likely perceived as an act of hostility. Given that 90% of Japan's oil imports traverse the Strait of Hormuz, this decision places Japan in an extremely vulnerable position, facing potential severe energy supply disruptions if the closure persists. The report contrasts Takaichi's perceived fawning political actions with the diplomatic astuteness of leaders like Angela Merkel and Margaret Thatcher, suggesting Japan's approach has made it a prime target for Iran's assertive posture. North and South Korean relations have reached a freezing point, as reported by NetEase. Following his re-election as chairman of the State Affairs Commission on March 22, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un formally defined South Korea as the most hostile country in a policy speech the following day. This declaration reinforces earlier strong statements made in February. Despite South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's shift towards a more conciliatory dialogue policy, advocating peaceful coexistence, reducing joint military exercises, and halting hostile propaganda, Pyongyang perceives these gestures as insincere. The article highlights two main reasons for North Korea's hardline stance. Firstly, ongoing U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises, such as Freedom Shield in March, are seen by North Korea as a prelude to an invasion war, despite South Korea's attempts to downplay their impact. Secondly, South Korea's tacit approval of the U.S. military's use of its bases for transporting equipment, including Thing-Dai and Patriot systems, to the Middle East is viewed by North Korea as hypocrisy. Consequently, bilateral relations are expected to remain in a long-term standoff. NetEase reports that the European Union has rejected a $90 billion loan to Ukraine and surprisingly reversed its proposed ban on Russian oil, a move influenced by Russia's direct warnings about escalating energy costs for European citizens. This significant policy shift has already led to a substantial drop in German electricity prices. Despite Germany's initial firm stance against easing sanctions, the EU's decision highlights the severe economic pressures faced by member states, particularly Germany, which has struggled with manufacturing competitiveness and corporate exodus even with energy subsidies. The article suggests that Russia has emerged as the primary beneficiary of these developments, with increased oil revenues bolstering its financial position. Concurrently, Ukraine is facing severe financial strain due to reduced Western aid and the rejection of the EU loan. This turn of events is seen as tilting the balance of the conflict further in Russia's favor, potentially leading to increased pressure on Ukraine for an unconditional surrender. The EU's concession to Russia also exposes deep internal divisions and fiscal challenges among member states, threatening its unity and potentially its long-term stability. According to WANI, within 48 hours of Donald Trump reportedly announcing a new date for a visit to China, Beijing launched a series of forceful trade countermeasures against the United States, showing no leniency. China initiated a trade investigation into U.S. practices, specifically targeting allegations of the U.S. disrupting global supply chains and impeding the trade of green products. The article contends that historically, the U.S. has used overcapacity and forced labor as pretext for trade sanctions against China, particularly in the new energy sector, where tariffs on electric vehicles reached 100% during the Biden administration. China views its current actions, including legal procedures, as a strategic shift from passive defense to active retaliation. This comes as the U.S. faces internal and external challenges, including soaring inflation due to an oil crisis exacerbated by Middle East conflicts, with key U.S. allies in Asia also struggling with energy dependence. China sees an opportune moment to compel the U.S. to open its markets to Chinese new energy products amidst rising fossil fuel costs. CBS News reports that former Prime Minister Khadga Prasad Ali and former Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak of Nepal were arrested early Saturday, March 28, 2026. The arrests are in connection with the deaths of dozens of people during violent protests in September 2025, which led to the collapse of the previous government and subsequent elections. The new government, led by rapper-tained politician Balendra Shah's Rastriya Swatantra Party, had just taken office the day before. Home Minister Sudan Gurung stated, "No one is above the law. This is not revenge against anyone. It is just the beginning of justice." An investigation by an interim government commission had recommended up to 10 years in prison for Ali, Lekhak, and the former police chief. Supporters of Ali protested the arrests, clashing with riot police near the Prime Minister's office. The 2025 youth-led protests against corruption resulted in 76 deaths and over 2,300 injuries, forcing the appointment of Nepal's first female interim prime minister, Sushila Karki. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.